Marcus Thompson was a dedicated police captain in Willow Creek, a small town known for its tight-knit community and diverse population. On an ordinary Tuesday morning, he woke up early, as he always did, ready to embrace the day ahead. The sun had barely risen, casting a warm glow through the window of his modest home. He brewed a cup of coffee, savoring the rich aroma that filled the kitchen. His mind drifted to the day's agenda, which included a community outreach program aimed at fostering better relationships between the police department and residents. Marcus was passionate about this initiative. He believed that understanding and trust were the foundations of a peaceful community. After a quick breakfast, Marcus donned his uniform, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The badge on his chest felt heavy but proud. As he drove through the town, he admired the early morning bustle. People were jogging, others were walking their dogs, and a few shops were beginning to open. It was a typical scene, but for Marcus, it held the promise of making a difference. He arrived at the police station, greeted his colleagues with a friendly nod, and prepared for the morning briefing. The meeting was routine, filled with discussions about ongoing investigations and community concerns. However, an undercurrent of tension lingered in the air, especially regarding recent incidents of racial profiling that had sparked debates among residents. As a black man in a leadership position, Marcus often found himself navigating delicate conversations about race and bias. He was determined to lead by example, striving to show that change was possible within the police force. Later that afternoon, as Marcus completed his shift, he decided to run some errands before heading home. He was looking forward to spending the evening with his wife and young daughter. The sun was beginning to set as he pulled out of the grocery store parking lot, his mind occupied with thoughts of family. Suddenly, a police siren blared behind him. He glanced in the rearview mirror and saw a patrol car with its lights flashing. Confused, Marcus pulled over to the side of the road, wondering what he had done wrong. As he stepped out of his car, he recognized the officer approaching. It was Officer Jenkins, a notorious figure in the department, known for his aggressive demeanor and racial bias. Jenkins had a reputation for pulling over black residents for the slightest infractions, often accompanied by derogatory comments. Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach as the officer approached, the atmosphere thick with tension. "License and registration," Jenkins demanded, his tone laced with condescension. Marcus complied, handing over his credentials, trying to maintain his composure. "What seems to be the problem, officer?" he asked, attempting to defuse the situation. Jenkins's expression hardened. "You were speeding back there. Just because you wear a badge doesn't mean you're above the law," he sneered, his eyes narrowing. Marcus's heart raced as he realized that this was not just a routine traffic stop. It was a confrontation. He could feel the weight of his badge pressing down on him, a symbol of authority that was now being questioned. "With all due respect, officer, I was not speeding," Marcus replied, his voice steady but laced with irritation. "I'm on my way home from work." Jenkins scoffed, stepping closer, invading Marcus's personal space. "You think you can talk back to me? I'll show you who's in charge here." The confrontation escalated as Jenkins began to hurl insults. Marcus felt the anger rising within him, not just at Jenkins, but at the systemic racism that had long plagued the police force. He knew that standing up to Jenkins could have consequences, but he also understood the importance of not letting such behavior go unchecked. As the officer continued to belittle him, Marcus took a deep breath, weighing his options. "Jenkins, this is unacceptable. You're perpetuating the very issues we're trying to address in this department," he said, his voice firm but calm. He felt a surge of determination, realizing that this moment could spark change. The crowd that had begun to gather on the sidewalk held their breath, many of them pulling out their phones to record the incident. "You think you can lecture me? You're just another black man in a uniform. You don't intimidate me," Jenkins retorted, his face flushed with anger. Marcus felt the heat of the moment rising. He could sense the eyes of the onlookers, their curiosity piqued by the confrontation. This was not just about him. It was about something larger, a battle against ingrained prejudice. Just then, a voice broke through the tension. "Hey, why don't you treat him with respect?" shouted a bystander, emboldened by the growing crowd. The words ignited murmurs among the spectators, who began to voice their support for Marcus. Feeling the swell of solidarity, Marcus straightened his posture. "You're not going to intimidate me or anyone else," he said, his voice resonating with authority. "We all deserve to be treated with respect, regardless of our skin color." The crowd erupted in cheers, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Jenkins, realizing he was losing control, stepped back, his face a mix of confusion and rage. "Get back in your car, Captain. This isn't over," he spat before turning on his heel and retreating to his cruiser. Marcus watched him go, his heart racing. He had just stood up to a fellow officer, and while it felt empowering, he knew this was only the beginning. The crowd began to disperse, but whispers of what had just transpired echoed in the air. As Marcus got back into his car, he felt a mix of exhilaration and fear. This incident had the potential to change everything, not just for him, but for the entire community. He drove home, his thoughts racing, contemplating the implications of his confrontation with Jenkins. Little did he know, this was the catalyst for a series of events that would challenge the very fabric of Willow Creek and force everyone to confront their biases. Arriving home, he embraced his wife and daughter, grateful for the love that anchored him amidst the chaos. As he settled down for dinner, he couldn't shake the feeling that this ordinary day had morphed into something extraordinary, something that would resonate throughout the community in ways he could never have imagined. The night ended with a sense of unease, a foreshadowing of the challenges that lay ahead. The morning after the confrontation with Officer Jenkins, Marcus awoke to an uneasy stillness in his home. The sun filtered through the curtains, casting soft light across his daughter's sleeping form. As he lay in bed, his mind raced back to the incident from the day before, replaying every moment like a film reel stuck on repeat. He could still hear Jenkins's taunts and feel the weight of the onlookers' gazes, a mix of support and disbelief. He had expected some repercussions, but nothing could prepare him for what was to come. As he got ready for work, Marcus noticed the notifications flooding his phone. Social media was ablaze with posts about the incident, some celebrating his courage while others viciously attacked him. Local news outlets were picking up the story, broadcasting clips of the confrontation. The town of Willow Creek, once a quiet place where everyone knew each other, had become a battleground for conversations about race and policing. It was a lot to take in, but Marcus knew he couldn't shy away from the attention. He had to face it head-on. Arriving at the station, he was met with a mixture of support and hostility from his colleagues. Some officers approached him, expressing solidarity, while others cast sidelong glances that suggested disapproval. The tension was palpable. Captain Reynolds, the police chief, called a meeting to address the situation. The room was filled with officers, all eyes on Marcus as he took a seat at the front. Reynolds began with a stern expression, his voice steady as he acknowledged the events of the previous day. "Let's discuss the incident involving Captain Thompson and Officer Jenkins," he said, his tone neutral but firm. "This department is under scrutiny, and we need to handle it carefully." As he spoke, Marcus felt a mix of anger and frustration. This was not just a matter of departmental image. It was about addressing the very real issues of racism and bias that affected their community. Reynolds continued, outlining the need for unity and professionalism. "I expect everyone to uphold the integrity of this department. We cannot afford any distractions." The implications were clear. He wanted Marcus to back down, to retract his statements and quell the growing unrest. As the meeting progressed, Marcus felt a growing sense of resolve. He wasn't going to allow fear to dictate his actions. During a break, Lisa, the journalist who had reached out to him, arrived at the station. She had been following the story closely and wanted to conduct an interview with Marcus about his experiences and the fallout from the confrontation. Initially hesitant, he realized that this was an opportunity to share his truth and advocate for change. They agreed to meet later that evening. As the day wore on, news of the incident continued to spread. Marcus received calls from friends and family, all expressing their support but also their concern. His mother, a strong woman who had faced her share of discrimination, reminded him to be cautious. "You're fighting a tough battle, Marcus. Just remember, people will try to tear you down," she advised, her voice filled with love and worry. By the time he finished his shift, Marcus felt emotionally drained. He drove home, navigating the quiet streets that had become so charged with tension. His wife, Tasha, greeted him at the door with a worried smile, sensing his inner turmoil. "How was your day?" she asked, her eyes searching his for answers. "Complicated," he replied, taking a deep breath. "I've agreed to do an interview with Lisa. I think it's important to speak out, but I'm scared about what it might lead to." Tasha placed a comforting hand on his arm. "You're doing the right thing. Just remember, you're not alone in this. We're all behind you." Her words gave him strength, but the shadows of doubt lingered in his mind. That evening, as Marcus prepared for the interview, he reflected on the messages he had received from community members. Many expressed gratitude for his bravery, sharing their own stories of discrimination and bias. This outpouring of support reminded him of the importance of his voice and the need for change. He understood that by speaking up, he was giving a voice to those who had felt silenced for too long. When Lisa arrived, she set up her camera and microphone in their living room, creating a casual yet professional atmosphere. As they began to talk, Marcus felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. He shared his experience of the traffic stop, his feelings of anger and humiliation, and the struggles he faced as a black officer in a predominantly white department. "It's not just about me," he said passionately. "It's about everyone who has been marginalized and treated unfairly. We need to confront these issues head-on if we want to create a better community." As he spoke, Marcus saw the glimmer of hope in Lisa's eyes. She was captivated by his story, nodding along as he shared his thoughts on accountability, police reform, and the necessity of dialogue. The interview became a powerful moment of vulnerability and strength, revealing the depth of his convictions. When it ended, Lisa thanked him for his openness, promising to ensure that his voice was heard. "This is just the beginning, Marcus. Your courage will inspire others to speak out," she said, a fire in her voice. They parted ways, and as he sat on the couch, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was ready to take on whatever came next. The following day, the interview aired, and the impact was immediate. Viewers across Willow Creek and beyond tuned in, their reactions pouring in through social media. Some applauded Marcus for his bravery, while others criticized him harshly, claiming he was misrepresenting the police force. The comments section exploded, filled with passionate debates about race, policing, and the need for change. As Marcus scrolled through the reactions, he felt a mixture of pride and anxiety. He had shared his truth, but he also realized the challenges that lay ahead. Internal tensions within the police department were growing, and whispers of discontent began to circulate. Some officers felt that Marcus was betraying them, while others rallied in support. Later that week, a rally was organized by local activists, calling for justice and accountability in the police department. The community response was overwhelming, with residents from all walks of life showing up to express their solidarity. Marcus felt a surge of hope as he saw people come together, united by a common cause. As the rally approached, he knew he had to attend. This was not just about him anymore. It was about standing with his community, raising awareness, and demanding change. He looked at Tasha, who was busy preparing for the event, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had been his rock throughout this tumultuous time, always encouraging him to stay true to his values. When the day of the rally arrived, the streets of Willow Creek were filled with people holding signs that read "Justice for All" and "End Racial Profiling." Marcus joined them, feeling the energy of the crowd invigorate him. The chants echoed through the air, a powerful reminder of the collective voice of the people. As he stood at the forefront of the rally, He was filled with a sense of purpose, ready to confront the injustices that had long been overlooked. The event unfolded with speeches from community leaders, passionate calls for change, and heartfelt testimonials from residents sharing their experiences with racism. The atmosphere was electric, a blend of determination and hope. However, amidst the positivity, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of unease. He knew that not everyone supported this movement, and tensions could erupt at any moment. As the rally reached its climax, Marcus took to the stage, addressing the crowd with a fire in his heart. "We are here today to demand respect, equality, and justice for everyone in our community. It's time to break the silence, to hold each other accountable, and to create a better future for our children." The crowd erupted in applause, their voices rising in unison. Little did he know, the challenges he faced were only beginning, and the path ahead would test his strength and resolve in ways he never expected. As the rally continued, Marcus felt an unexpected rush of adrenaline, propelling him forward into the fight for justice, unaware of the turbulent days that awaited him and his community. The following days after the rally were a whirlwind for Marcus. As the dust settled, he felt the weight of his decision to speak out about the confrontation with Officer Jenkins. The community was alive with discussion, and the once quiet streets of Willow Creek buzzed with energy and urgency. Local news outlets continued to cover the story, amplifying the voices of those calling for change within the police department. While many applauded Marcus for his bravery, there were still pockets of resistance, whispers of discontent among certain officers and community members who felt threatened by the growing momentum for reform. As he arrived at the police station for his shift, Marcus could feel the palpable tension in the air. He walked through the precinct, his senses heightened as he observed the stares and whispers from his colleagues. Some greeted him with nods of encouragement, while others avoided eye contact entirely. The atmosphere was thick with uncertainty, and Marcus knew that the impact of his actions was reverberating through the department. That afternoon, Captain Reynolds called for another meeting, this time specifically to address the fallout from the rally and the ongoing discourse about racism and policing. As Marcus entered the room, he could see that the ranks of the officers were divided. Some looked frustrated, while others appeared supportive, but the underlying tension was unmistakable. Reynolds began the meeting by acknowledging the concerns raised by the community, emphasizing the importance of maintaining professionalism and unity within the department. "While we appreciate the sentiments expressed at the rally, we must remember our duty as officers," Reynolds said, his tone serious. "We cannot allow personal feelings to cloud our judgment or compromise our effectiveness as a police force." His eyes flickered to Marcus, and for a moment, the air felt electric. It was clear that Reynolds wanted to steer the conversation away from the issues Marcus had raised, but the captain knew he couldn't let that happen. "Respectfully, Captain," Marcus interjected, "this isn't just about maintaining professionalism. It's about addressing the systemic issues that affect our community. We can't ignore the voices that are calling for change. We need to listen." The room fell silent, and Marcus could feel the tension heighten. Some officers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others exchanged glances that conveyed a mixture of surprise and resentment. Reynolds cleared his throat, a slight crease forming between his brows. "We must ensure that our actions do not provoke further division. We need to find a way to address these concerns without compromising the integrity of our department." Marcus could see the hesitation in the captain's eyes, a reluctance to truly engage with the difficult topics at hand. After the meeting, Marcus felt both empowered and frustrated. He understood the importance of maintaining order within the department, but he also recognized that silence would only perpetuate the problems they were trying to address. The words of the community echoed in his mind. They were tired of being dismissed, tired of feeling powerless in the face of injustice. The following week, as the community continued to rally for change, a pivotal moment arrived. The local activists organized a town hall meeting to discuss police reform. Inviting community members to voice their concerns and suggestions, Marcus knew he had to attend. It was a chance for him to stand alongside his neighbors and actively participate in the dialogue. On the night of the town hall, the community center was packed. People filled every seat, with others standing along the walls, eager to lend their voices to the conversation. Marcus felt a surge of pride as he looked around the room, seeing a diverse gathering of individuals united by a common purpose. It was a testament to the power of solidarity and the determination to make a difference. The meeting began with a series of speeches from community leaders who passionately articulated their experiences with law enforcement and the need for meaningful reform. As the floor opened for public comments, a mix of emotions washed over the crowd: anger, sadness, and hope. Marcus listened intently as residents shared their stories, recounting encounters with law enforcement that left them feeling dehumanized and invisible. Each testimony reinforced the necessity of change, echoing the sentiments that had fueled the rally. When it was finally Marcus's turn to speak, he felt a rush of adrenaline. He approached the microphone, his heart pounding as he looked out over the sea of faces, each one expectant and hopeful. "I stand before you not just as a police captain, but as a member of this community," he began, his voice steady but passionate. "I've seen firsthand the impact of bias and discrimination, both in the streets and within our own department. We can no longer afford to remain silent. We must hold ourselves accountable and strive to rebuild the trust that has been fractured." The room erupted in applause, and for a moment, Marcus felt a wave of encouragement wash over him. He continued, "I believe we have the power to create change, but it requires courage from all of us. We must confront our biases, have difficult conversations, and work together to establish a police force that truly serves and protects everyone in our community." As he finished speaking, the audience erupted into cheers, their support fueling his resolve. However, he also sensed that not everyone was in agreement. He spotted Jenkins sitting at the back of the room, arms crossed, his expression a mix of disdain and anger. The sight of the officer sent a chill down Marcus's spine. He knew that Jenkins would not take this challenge lightly. After the meeting concluded, Marcus was approached by several residents who expressed their gratitude for his willingness to speak out. They shared their own experiences, offering their support and encouragement. One woman, an elderly grandmother named Evelyn, took his hand and looked him in the eyes. "Thank you, Marcus. You're giving us hope," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "We need more officers like you who care about our community." Her words resonated deeply within him, reinforcing the belief that change was possible. But as the weeks went by, the tension in the department continued to escalate. Marcus received more threats and hostile messages, some suggesting that he was betraying his fellow officers. The situation reached a boiling point when Jenkins confronted him directly in the precinct, his voice low and filled with menace. "You think you can take me down with your little speeches and rallies? You're just another black man trying to play the victim," he spat, his eyes glinting with malice. Marcus felt a surge of anger, but held it in check. He knew that responding with violence or aggression would only undermine his cause. Instead, he replied calmly, "I'm not trying to take anyone down, Jenkins. I'm trying to lift our community up. It's time for us to address the issues that divide us, not perpetuate them." The tension between them crackled like electricity, but Marcus stood his ground, refusing to back down. The confrontation marked a turning point for Marcus. He realized that standing up for what was right came with risks, but he was willing to face them head-on. In the days that followed, he doubled down on his efforts to engage with the community, attending local meetings and workshops focused on race relations and police accountability. He understood that true change would require not only his voice, but the collective strength of the community. The evening of the town hall had sparked something profound within him, a sense of purpose that he had never fully grasped before. As he walked through the streets of Willow Creek, he saw the impact of their collective efforts. People were beginning to talk openly about their experiences, holding one another accountable, and advocating for change. It was a beautiful sight. but the path ahead remained fraught with challenges. Just as Marcus began to feel a glimmer of hope, he received a call that would change everything. The police department had been notified of a major incident involving Officer Jenkins, one that could threaten the fragile progress they had made. The urgency in the voice on the other end of the line sent a shiver down his spine. As he rushed to the station, he prepared himself for the storm that lay ahead, fully aware that this could be the moment that would either break them or catalyze the change they so desperately sought. The atmosphere at the police station was tense when Marcus arrived, a palpable sense of urgency filling the air. Officers rushed back and forth, some speaking in hushed tones, others with expressions of disbelief etched across their faces. As he walked through the precinct, Marcus could hear snippets of conversation that sent a chill down his spine. Officer Jenkins had been involved in a serious altercation during a traffic stop, and it was escalating into a major incident that threatened to undo all the work they had begun in the community. Marcus made his way to the briefing room, where Captain Reynolds was addressing the officers. The captain looked strained, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a furrowed brow. "We've received reports that Officer Jenkins was involved in a violent confrontation during a traffic stop earlier this evening," he announced, his voice steady but laced with concern. "Witnesses claim that he used excessive force, and the individual involved has been taken to the hospital. We're under investigation, and I need everyone to cooperate fully." The gravity of the situation hung in the air like a storm cloud. Marcus felt his heart race as he considered the implications. The community had just begun to trust the police force again, and now they were faced with yet another incident of brutality. It felt like a cruel twist of fate, especially after everything he had fought for. As Reynolds continued, Marcus's mind raced with thoughts of how this would affect not only the department, but also the lives of those in Willow Creek. "What do we know about the individual involved?" Marcus asked, his voice breaking through the tension. The captain hesitated before responding. "It appears to be a young black man named Malik, who was stopped for a minor violation. Reports indicate that Jenkins escalated the situation unnecessarily." The name sent a jolt through Marcus. Malik was someone he recognized from the community, a hard-working young man who had recently graduated high school and was trying to build a future. As the meeting concluded, Marcus knew he had to act. He gathered a small group of supportive officers and decided to head to the hospital where Malik was being treated. They arrived to find a chaotic scene, with community members gathered outside, anxious and fearful about what had transpired. As they approached, the atmosphere grew heavy with emotion, anger palpable in the air. Marcus could hear murmurs of outrage and concern as people demanded answers. He took a deep breath, stepping forward to address the crowd. "Everyone, please listen," he called out, raising his hands to signal for calm. "I understand your anger and your fear. I'm here to find out what happened and to ensure that we address this situation properly." The crowd quieted, eyes fixed on him, a mixture of hope and skepticism reflected in their expressions. One woman stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "You don't understand. Malik was just driving home. He didn't deserve this. We need justice." Her voice broke, echoing the sentiment of many in the crowd. Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "I promise you, we will get to the bottom of this. I'm here for you, and I will not let this go unnoticed." As the crowd began to disperse, whispers of solidarity and support filled the air. Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that he had to be the bridge between the police department and the community. He wanted to show that not all officers were like Jenkins, and that there were those within the department who truly cared about the well-being of the citizens they served. Later that evening, Marcus met with Malik's family at the hospital. They were distraught, the trauma of the incident weighing heavily on them. Malik's mother, a strong woman with weary eyes, clutched her son's hand, praying for his recovery. "Why did this happen? He was just a kid," she sobbed, her pain cutting through Marcus like a knife. "He didn't do anything wrong. Ma'am, I can assure you that we will hold Officer Jenkins accountable for his actions," Marcus said, his voice filled with empathy. "This isn't right, and we will make sure your son gets the justice he deserves." The promise hung in the air, a fragile hope amid the turmoil. As the night wore on, Marcus stayed with the family, answering questions and offering support. He felt a deep connection to them, understanding their fears and frustrations. In that moment, he realized that this was not just about one officer's misconduct. It was about the systemic issues that had plagued the community for far too long. He needed to find a way to turn this tragedy into a catalyst for change. In the days that followed, the incident gained traction in the media, sparking outrage and protests throughout Willow Creek. Community members rallied outside the police station, demanding justice for Malik and accountability for Jenkins. Signs reading "Justice for Malik" and "End Police Brutality" adorned the streets, and the calls for change grew louder. Marcus knew he had to take action. He reached out to local activists and community leaders, organizing a town hall meeting to address the incident and discuss steps toward reform. He wanted to create a space for dialogue, to allow the community to voice their concerns and demands directly to the police department. As he worked tirelessly to set up the event, he felt a mix of fear and determination. This was not just about repairing the damage. It was about rebuilding trust and fostering understanding. The night of the town hall meeting arrived, and the community center was packed. The energy in the room was electric, a mix of anticipation and anger. Marcus stood at the front, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He glanced around the room, seeing familiar faces filled with a range of emotions. He could sense their desire for change and their readiness to fight for what was right. As the meeting began, Marcus took a deep breath, stepping up to the microphone. "Thank you all for being here tonight. We are gathered not just to discuss the recent incident, but to address the systemic issues that have led us to this point. I want to hear your voices, your stories, and your suggestions for how we can move forward together." The crowd erupted in applause, and Marcus felt a surge of hope. One by one, community members stepped forward to share their experiences with law enforcement, recounting instances of racial profiling and bias. The testimonies were raw and emotional, laying bare the wounds that had long been festering beneath the surface. As the night progressed, tensions flared as some individuals demanded immediate action against Jenkins. Marcus listened intently, acknowledging their pain and frustration. "I understand your anger," he said, his voice steady. "What happened to Malik was unacceptable, and we are committed to ensuring that justice is served. However, we must also find a way to heal and work together to create a safer environment for everyone in our community." Just as he finished speaking, a voice rang out from the back of the room. "What will you do about Jenkins? How can we trust that he won't do this again?" The question hung in the air, heavy with expectation. Marcus knew the answer wasn't simple, but he also understood the importance of accountability. "I will personally ensure that this incident is thoroughly investigated," he promised, looking directly into the eyes of the crowd. "We need to establish clear protocols for handling situations like this, and I will advocate for policies that promote transparency and accountability within our department." The crowd murmured, a mix of skepticism and cautious hope. Marcus felt the weight of their expectations on his shoulders, but he was determined to prove that change was possible. He closed the meeting with a call to action, urging everyone to work together for a brighter future. "We can't do this alone. We need each other. Let's come together as a community to demand change and ensure that incidents like this never happen again." As the crowd began to disperse, Marcus felt a sense of relief and purpose. It was clear that the path to healing would be long and arduous, but they had taken the first steps toward rebuilding trust and fostering understanding. He knew that the fight for justice was far from over, but for the first time in a while, he felt a flicker of hope that together they could create the change they so desperately sought. However, he was aware that not everyone was on board with this vision. Jenkins, humiliated and cornered, would not take this lying down. The looming threat of retaliation lingered in the air, and Marcus understood that he would need to stay vigilant. The stakes were high, And as he left the community center, he felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. But he also felt a fire igniting within him, a determination to fight for justice, not just for Malik, but for the entire community of Willow Creek. The battle had just begun. In the weeks that followed the town hall meeting, the air in Willow Creek buzzed with a mix of tension and hope. The community was rallying around the call for justice for Malik, and protests continued to gain momentum. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. As a police captain, he was caught in the crossfire of expectation from both the community and his fellow officers. The support for Malik's family grew, yet whispers of dissent and anger bubbled within the precinct, particularly from those loyal to Officer Jenkins. One afternoon, as Marcus prepared for another community meeting to discuss police reform, he received a text message that made his heart sink. It was from a fellow officer who had once been a close friend. "Be careful, Marcus. The department isn't happy with you. Jenkins has friends in high places." The threat hung in the air like a dark cloud, and Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that danger was lurking around every corner. Determined not to let fear dictate his actions, Marcus pressed on with the preparations for the upcoming meeting. He wanted to ensure that this event would not only address community concerns, but also lay the groundwork for real change. The proposal included plans for implicit bias training and increased transparency in police practices. However, he knew that implementing these changes would meet resistance, especially from officers who felt their authority was being questioned. The night of the meeting arrived, and the community center was once again filled to capacity. Excitement and apprehension were palpable in the room as Marcus took the stage. "Thank you all for coming. Your voices matter. And tonight, we will outline a path forward to ensure that incidents like Malik's never happen again," he declared, feeling the energy of the crowd invigorate him. As he presented the proposals for reform, the atmosphere shifted from anxious anticipation to engaged enthusiasm. Community members asked questions and offered suggestions, and Marcus felt a swell of pride in the unity that had formed among them. However, beneath the surface, he could sense Jenkins's influence lurking, ready to undermine their efforts. The following week, during a routine shift at the precinct, Marcus was called into Captain Reynolds' office. The captain's expression was grave, and Marcus's stomach twisted with anxiety. "Marcus, we need to talk about Jenkins. There are some serious allegations coming to light regarding his conduct during the traffic stop," Reynolds began, his voice low. "What kind of allegations?" Marcus asked, his heart racing. Reynolds leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Witnesses are claiming that Jenkins used excessive force, and now there's talk of potential criminal charges. Some of the officers in the department are worried about the fallout. There's fear that this could reflect poorly on all of us." Marcus felt a mix of relief and anger. Jenkins was finally facing consequences, but the prospect of the entire department being held accountable for one officer's actions felt unjust. "This isn't just about Jenkins. It's about the system that allowed this behavior to persist in the first place. We need to focus on real reform," Marcus insisted, determination swelling within him. Reynolds sighed. "I agree, but we need to tread carefully. There are factions in the department that want to protect Jenkins, and they're not going to go down without a fight. We need to prepare for a backlash." Marcus left the captain's office feeling a surge of resolve. He knew the fight was far from over, and he was prepared to stand his ground. That evening, he reached out to community leaders and activists, organizing a rally to demand accountability and reform within the police department. The response was overwhelmingly positive. People were eager to stand up for what was right and push for change. On the night of the rally, the streets of Willow Creek were filled with passionate voices calling for justice. Marcus stood at the forefront, feeling a rush of adrenaline as he addressed the crowd. "We are here tonight to demand accountability for Jenkins and to stand up for Malik. We will not be silenced or intimidated. Together, we can create a safer and more just community for everyone." The energy was electric as the crowd erupted in cheers, holding signs that read "Justice for Malik" and "End Police Brutality." The sense of unity was palpable, but as the night unfolded, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that Jenkins and his supporters were plotting their next move. As they marched through the streets, chanting for change, Marcus spotted Jenkins lurking at the edge of the crowd, flanked by a few fellow officers. Their expressions were hostile, and he felt a knot of apprehension tighten in his stomach. It was a volatile situation, and he knew that tensions could escalate at any moment. Just as the rally reached its peak, an unexpected commotion broke out at the back of the crowd. A scuffle erupted, and Marcus's heart raced as he rushed toward the chaos. Officers who had previously supported Jenkins were now confronting those who had rallied for Malik, their voices rising in anger. "Get out of here, Thompson. You're a traitor," one of the officers shouted, his face flushed with rage. Marcus felt a surge of defiance. "I'm not going anywhere. This is our community, and we deserve to be heard." The shouts and clashes filled the air, and as Marcus pushed through the crowd, he spotted Jenkins at the center of the chaos, instigating the confrontation. "You think you can change things around here? You'll never win," Jenkins bellowed, his voice dripping with contempt. Marcus stepped forward, fueled by a mix of anger and resolve. "This isn't about winning or losing, Jenkins. This is about doing what's right. It's about holding you accountable for your actions." The crowd murmured in agreement, their voices rising in a chorus of support. As tensions escalated, Marcus could see the faces of community members, their expressions a blend of fear and determination. He knew he had to defuse the situation before it spiraled out of control. "Everyone, please, we are here for justice, not violence. Let's show them that we can stand together without fighting among ourselves." His words seemed to resonate, and slowly but surely the crowd began to calm. The hostility began to dissipate, but Marcus could still feel Jenkins's presence like a storm cloud hovering over them. He needed to address the crowd directly, to remind them of the purpose of their gathering. "We are not just fighting for Malik. We are fighting for a better future for our community. We have the power to create change, but we must do it peacefully and with respect," he implored, his voice rising with passion. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Jenkins backed away, clearly frustrated but unable to provoke further chaos. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of relief and determination. The rally had turned into a pivotal moment, a reminder that while challenges lay ahead, the community was ready to fight for justice. In the days that followed, the fallout from the rally intensified. Jenkins was placed on administrative leave, pending the investigation, but the support for Malik and the call for reform continued to grow. The media covered the events extensively, amplifying the voices of those demanding change. Meanwhile, Marcus faced mounting pressure within the department. Some officers openly expressed their disdain for him, blaming him for the chaos and division. They were furious at his decision to stand up against Jenkins, and whispers of insubordination began to circulate. Marcus felt isolated, but he remained steadfast in his commitment to justice. As the investigation into Jenkins progressed, the community continued to rally behind Marcus. They organized peaceful protests, calling for transparency and accountability within the police force. The support from the residents became a lifeline for him, reminding him that he was not alone in this fight. One evening, after a particularly challenging day at the precinct, Marcus received a call from Malik's mother. "Marcus, I just wanted to thank you for everything you're doing," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "It means so much to our family to know that someone in your position is fighting for justice." Her words resonated deeply within him, reinforcing his resolve. "I won't stop fighting until we get the justice Malik deserves," he promised, feeling the weight of responsibility transform into determination. As the community continued to mobilize, Marcus knew that this was just the beginning of a long and arduous journey. He understood that the fight for justice and accountability would require not only his voice, but the collective strength of the entire community. With each passing day, he became more determined to dismantle the walls of prejudice and fear that had long divided them, believing that together They could forge a brighter future for Willow Creek. However, he was acutely aware of the challenges that lay ahead. The investigation into Jenkins was heating up, and with it came the potential for backlash from those who wished to maintain the status quo. The stakes had never been higher, and Marcus prepared himself for the battles that were yet to come, determined to stand firm in the face of adversity. As he looked out over the streets of Willow Creek, he felt the fire of hope ignite within him, knowing that change was not only possible, it was necessary. The fight was on, and he was ready to lead the charge. As the weeks rolled on, the tension in Willow Creek became almost tangible, a thick fog of anxiety and anticipation settling over the town. The investigation into Officer Jenkins was nearing its conclusion, and the community was on edge, awaiting the outcome with bated breath. Marcus felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him, both as a captain and a member of the community. He was determined to see justice served for Malik and to ensure that this moment became a catalyst for meaningful change. One afternoon, a local news crew arrived at the police station to cover the investigation. The atmosphere was charged as reporters and cameras flooded in, eager to capture the unfolding story. Marcus stood in front of the press, flanked by Captain Reynolds, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. Today marks an important step toward accountability. Marcus began, his voice steady. We are committed to ensuring that Officer Jenkins is held responsible for his actions and that our department takes the necessary steps to prevent incidents of excessive force in the future. As he spoke, Marcus could see the reporters jotting down notes, their eyes fixed on him. He wanted to convey the message that change was coming, that the police department would not shy away from its responsibilities. Yet deep down, he felt a flicker of doubt. Would this moment truly lead to lasting reform, or would it fade like so many promises before it? The investigation culminated in a public announcement that sent ripples through the community. Jenkins would face disciplinary action and potential criminal charges for his conduct during the traffic stop. The decision was met with a mix of relief and outrage. While some applauded the accountability, others felt it was insufficient, demanding more significant changes within the department. In the wake of the announcement, a community rally was organized to celebrate the victory, while simultaneously pushing for more extensive reform. Marcus felt an overwhelming sense of purpose as he prepared to speak at the event. This rally was not only a testament to the power of community activism, but also an opportunity to solidify the trust between the police and the residents. On the day of the rally, the atmosphere was electric. The streets of Willow Creek were lined with people holding signs, their chants ringing through the air like a clarion call for justice. As Marcus took the stage, he was met with a roar of applause and cheers from the crowd. "Thank you for being here today," he began, his heart swelling with pride. "This is a testament to what we can achieve when we stand together. Today, we celebrate a step toward accountability, but our work is far from over." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Marcus felt the energy pulse through him. He shared stories of Malik's bravery and resilience, highlighting the importance of ensuring that no one in their community would face the same fate. "We must continue to fight for a police force that serves and protects everyone, regardless of race," he urged, his voice strong and unwavering. As he spoke, he noticed a familiar face in the crowd, Malik, who had joined the rally with his family. The sight of him filled Marcus with hope, a living testament to the power of their collective struggle. Malik's presence embodied the changes they sought to achieve, and as their eyes met, a silent understanding passed between them, a recognition of the journey they had undertaken together. The rally proceeded with passionate speeches from community leaders and activists, their voices resonating with the crowd. As the event unfolded, a renewed sense of purpose washed over Marcus. He realized that this was not just about one officer facing consequences. It was about transforming the very fabric of their community, creating a culture where respect and accountability reigned supreme. As the evening came to a close, a sense of unity enveloped the crowd. People mingled, exchanging stories and ideas, their spirits buoyed by the collective effort for change. Marcus felt a surge of optimism. The community had come together, and their voices were being heard. However, he was also aware that challenges lay ahead, and the fight for justice would require ongoing commitment. In the days following the rally, discussions continued about implementing reforms within the police department. Marcus worked tirelessly to develop a comprehensive plan, focusing on implicit bias training, community engagement, and increased transparency. He knew that for real change to take root, it had to be built on trust and collaboration between the police and the community. As the plan took shape, Marcus faced resistance from some officers who felt threatened by the proposed changes. They argued that the reforms undermined their authority and questioned their integrity. Yet, Marcus remained steadfast, determined to push through the obstacles in the way of progress. He organized meetings with fellow officers, encouraging open dialogue about their concerns and fears, and sharing the importance of moving forward together. One evening, as Marcus prepared for another meeting, he received a call from Malik's mother. "Marcus, I just wanted to thank you again for everything you've done for my son and our family," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "It's because of you that Malik feels supported and believed in." Her words struck a chord within him, reaffirming his belief in the power of advocacy and change. "I'm just doing what's right," he replied, his heart swelling with pride. "We all deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Together, we can create a better future for our community." As the weeks progressed, the momentum for change continued to build. The police department implemented new training programs focused on de-escalation tactics and community engagement, and residents began to see the impact of their advocacy. The relationships between officers and community members started to improve, fostering an atmosphere of cooperation and understanding. Yet, not everyone was pleased with the changes. Jenkins, despite facing disciplinary action, remained a vocal critic. He spread rumors and sowed discord among his fellow officers, attempting to undermine Marcus's efforts. Marcus knew that Jenkins would not go quietly. He was determined to resist the tide of change and cling to the status quo. During a particularly heated department meeting, Jenkins confronted Marcus directly. "You think you can change the way we do things with your little reforms? You're making us look weak," he shouted, his face flushed with anger. The tension in the room was palpable as other officers exchanged uncomfortable glances. Marcus stood tall, refusing to be intimidated. "This isn't about weakness, Jenkins. It's about making our community safer and more just for everyone. You may see it as a threat, but I see it as an opportunity to grow and improve," he responded, his voice steady. The meeting ended with unresolved tension, but Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. He understood that Jenkins represented the old guard, unwilling to embrace the changes that were essential for the future. As summer faded into fall, Marcus organized a community forum to discuss ongoing issues and gather input on further reforms. The turnout was impressive, with residents eager to engage in meaningful conversations about their experiences with law enforcement. During the forum, residents spoke candidly about their concerns, fears, and hopes for a better future. As the evening wore on, Marcus took the opportunity to share the progress made since the rally. "We are committed to creating a police department that reflects the values of our community," he said passionately. "But this change requires all of us, police officers and residents alike, to work together toward a common goal." The crowd responded with enthusiastic applause, and Marcus felt a swell of hope. This was what it meant to build bridges, to foster understanding in a world that often felt divided. As he looked out at the sea of faces, he realized that this journey was about more than just justice for Malik. It was about creating a culture of respect and accountability for future generations. As the forum concluded, Marcus felt a renewed sense of determination. The path to justice was long, but with every step forward, they were dismantling the barriers that had long separated them. He knew the fight would continue, but he was no longer afraid. He had a community standing beside him, and together, they would forge a new path forward. In the months that followed, the changes within the police department became more pronounced. The new training programs were yielding positive results, and community members began to express their appreciation for the officers' efforts. Marcus felt a sense of pride, knowing that they were finally making strides toward building a more just and equitable system. However, Jenkins remained a formidable obstacle. His influence persisted, and Marcus knew that he would have to confront the officer directly in order to fully achieve the transformation they sought. He began gathering evidence of Jenkins's continued undermining of the reforms, documenting instances where the officer had failed to comply with new policies and had attempted to incite division among his peers. The day came when Marcus decided it was time to address Jenkins once and for all. He called for a department meeting, ensuring that all officers were present. The tension in the room was thick as he stepped to the front, ready to confront Jenkins and stand firm in his convictions. Today, we need to have an honest conversation about our commitment to change. Marcus began, his voice steady. I've seen how some of us have embraced the new direction we're taking, but I've also witnessed attempts to undermine that progress. Jenkins's eyes narrowed, and Marcus could feel the hostility radiating from him. You're just trying to take control, Thompson. You think you're better than the rest of us. Jenkins spat, his voice dripping with contempt. Marcus held his ground. This isn't about power or control. It's about integrity and accountability. We have a responsibility to our community, and I will not stand by while you continue to sow division and fear. The room was silent, tension hanging in the air. Marcus continued, I'm prepared to escalate this matter if necessary. Our community deserves better, and I will fight for them, no matter the cost. The confrontation marked a turning point within the department. In the days that followed, support began to coalesce around Marcus, and many officers voiced their commitment to the reforms. They recognized the importance